chit-chat. Let's get to the meat of this episode. This week, the name on the marquee has got to be Ciryl Gane, who this past weekend at UFC Fight Night, Gane versus Spivac in front of 15,000 at the Accor Arena in Paris, France, finished Serghei Spivac by TKO. The official time, 3:44 of round number 2 in a 5-round bout. Mark, start us off here. Give us your take of this very impressive bounce-back win by Ciryl Gane.
I wish I had been able to be on the show last week because I would have looked pretty smart, because I swear this is exactly how I would have described this fight. I know I did leave my pick of Gane by 3rd-round TKO. It went a little quicker than I thought, but it really looked just how I envisioned it would. And it's because I didn't think Serghei Spivac was the right type of grappler to trouble Ciryl Gane. As much as he's had these deficiencies in his grappling that have been exposed by certain guys, I didn't think Spivac was that guy. And it's for 2 main reasons. One, he doesn't shoot. He needs to clinch to initiate his takedown game. And it's really hard to track down Ciryl Gane for clinch situations when you can't close that distance quickly with a shot-type takedown. Or if you can't, which is my point number 2, offer a striking threat, which Spivac does not. So I just didn't see how he'd get to Gane to clinch him without getting hurt. Like, even in Ngannou's wrestling success, it was because of the fact that he also posed a threat on the feet. So he was able to be catching Gane off guard with some takedowns and things like that. In this situation, as long as Gane could hold off the clinch, he didn't really have a lot of reason to be worried, in my opinion, about this matchup. And he fought very smart because he avoided exactly that. For most of this fight, almost all of what he threw was with his weight on his back foot, if you rewatch that fight. Nothing was sending him forward ever with the impact of any of his strikes that he was throwing towards Spivac where he could be grabbed. Really, until he knew he hurt him to the body at the start of that finishing sequence. That's when he finally said, like, okay, I can go a bit. And you saw some more weight coming behind his strikes. And he was just surgical in the finish, man. He kept the range. He still made sure Spivac couldn't hug him, but he also didn't let him breathe, and he put him out. And Felder used the phrase, it was a flawless victory, really, for Ciryl Gane. A huge, huge statement for him to bounce back off of how he looked in his last fight.
Dude, he made me look bad. Omar, let's bring you in here. What are your thoughts on how he got this finish? That's right, we both took Spivac.
Yeah, Spivac's a chooch. He made us both look bad. It was a crazy performance, man. I really did not have Spivac doing jack shit for 3 rounds in the bingo card. I mean, even the what was it, like 15 strikes to 100 some odd strikes, something crazy like that, the differential between the two. And those 15 strikes, I don't even know if they were even purposeful strikes. I think those were the ones that he just got caught up against the cage and started winging shots and hoping something was going to land. And a couple of times he touched Gane every now and again, but nothing that was significant, nothing that had any weight behind it. No. And Gane ate him up, man, from bell to bell. It was kind of a ridiculous performance and a good one for Gane, especially to kind of put any doubters hopefully to bed. I still think the takedown defense is sketchy. He didn't necessarily prove us wrong in this situation. He just never allowed it to get there in the first place.
Yeah.
And I guess if your best takedown defense is not having to use it at all, so good on him.
Right.
But it was a good performance from him, man. The striking is clean. His distance management is absolutely insane. The power that he possesses in such a mobile frame, I think, is really impressive. So hopefully we see more of this Gane. And if he runs into another wrestler, I'm really interested to see if he can repeat some of these kind of same advances it seems like he's made in his game.
Dude, I was so disappointed in Serghei Spivac, man. I made my pick fairly confidently last week, and I have egg on my face. Mark, you make a valid point that Spivac is not a double-legger, and that he usually secures takedowns from first getting to a clinch position, and you're right, that is true. But I thought that he was going to pursue that position and try to initiate that whole process with more aggression. He allowed himself, I thought, to just kind of get frozen. I mean, look, easier said than done. I'm not standing in front of Ciryl Gane. That's a tall task. But I thought that he was at least going to just try to make something happen a little bit more, but he allowed it to become a Ciryl Gane fight, and Ciryl Gane in Ciryl Gane fights is batting 1,000, man. He just let Ciryl Gane just like play long distance sniping for 2 rounds until he got picked apart and damaged enough, and Ciryl smelled blood in the water and he went in for the finish, man.
I think that's really the difference. Is Spivac could probably do better against somebody who wings their punches, somebody who throws really long looping hooks and he can catch them. He can block them relatively well. Gane is the dude that throws them down the middle and can break through your guard. He's surgical with the way that he fights, and he's very purposeful with how he throws his punches. And I just think you could see by the end of the fight that Spivac wasn't even the same color he was when he started that fight. His whole body was fucked up. His face was fucked up. His body was messed up. He had welts on his ribs. I mean, he was destroyed by the end of that fight. And I don't know if you've ever watched The Three Ninjas, but it's not a great movie. It's not really worth the rewatch if you haven't watched it. It does not hold up. But the point is, there's a part in there with it does not. It's a terrible movie. But they have this dummy in this movie where when you hit it in the right spot, it lights up. The eyes light up. And that's how he teaches the kids the right places to hit. I'm pretty sure a lot of that is bullshit. But my point in that is that every time Serghei Spivac was getting hit by Ciryl Gane, it looked like his eyes were just lighting up. I mean, every shot was nailing him clean. And Gane did a great job of mixing it up too, not just headhunting. He was cracking Spivac's body, right side, left side, down the middle, knees to the body, knees to the liver. I mean, he was... Honestly, I think lesser men would have probably been stopped long before Spivac ended up getting stopped.
That's a fair point.
It was a great performance from Gane. Spivac is a tough motherfucker, probably too tough for his own good, but what a crazy fight.
You got to look at Spivac's wins. Like, his big wins are Derek Lewis, Tai Tuivasa, Oleinik, Sakai. I don't know who else you want to put on this list. All those guys are guys who are there for you to crash into them and get a hold of them. Ciryl Gane is the direct opposite of that guy. And unless you have the kind of striking to stop his movement and to beat him to spots and to cut him off and to make him change his angles so that you can get a hold of him, that's the way that fight's going to look. And Serghei Spivac just does not have that. He has to be able to do the crash into you thing. And Ciryl Gane's not the guy to allow that.
The MMA math that I did was in his most recent victory, which was his biggest one to date over Derek Lewis. He finished him in the first round. He secured a takedown and finished him with an arm triangle choke in midway through the first round. And I thought, if a guy like Derek Lewis, who presents more danger than just about any heavyweight, if Spivac is like, very cool, I'm going to weather that storm, however brief or long it is, and I'm going to get you down on the ground, then I'm like, he's going to then get through whatever Ciryl Gane has to offer and get him to the ground. Because, I mean, Ciryl Gane maybe could be this guy if he wanted to be because he's a giant, but he's not a guy who cracks you and puts you out with one shot. That's just not his game. But boy,
but
was
I think
that's
what worked to his advantage. That's exactly why I think it worked. Is because he's able to, and as a heavyweight with 4-ounce gloves and the size of that man, the reality is it doesn't really take much for punches and kicks and knees to do a hell of a lot of damage without you having to throw 100% behind it. And Gane has a way of putting combos together. I mean, he's not hitting them one at a time. He's not trying to smash one at a time. He's hit you 3, 4, 5 times to the face, to the body, back up to the temple, back into your ribs. I mean, he was tearing Spivac up.
And there was points where Spivac was just standing in front of him. And again, I'm like, dude, if you if you charge through Derek Lewis without getting knocked out, I can't believe that he's like, whatever, that he wasn't like, again, I'm just making the same point again of just like, Ciryl Gane is not a guy who's going to knock you out with one punch. Like, go get him. You got to go get him. Got to go after
the angles, man. I think it's because Lewis hits you and Tai hits you and they're still in front of you if you can walk through it.
Right.
Gane hits you and he's gone.
Yeah.
I didn't just mean to
Look
Gane.
at you. Look at you.
Okay, let's talk about where these guys go from here. Let's talk about the winner. Ciryl Gane. Bon gamin. Mark, what do you think? If you were the matchmaker, what is next for Mr. Gane? Is he waiting around for a title shot again, or does he need another win?
It's very hard to say where he goes from here. He's certainly not going directly to a title shot. Absolutely not. There's a couple other guys in this mix, but he is in this trio of himself, Tom Aspinall, and Serghei Pavlovich, who are all kind of hovering just outside of this Bones-Stipe title fight that we have coming up. And he could certainly end up fighting either one of Aspinall or Pavlovich. But if we're being honest, Aspinall and Pavlovich are probably the ones that should be fighting each other, considering Gane just had his title shot and lost. Mm-hmm. And if that does get booked, then I don't know exactly what you do with Ciryl Gane. I mean, maybe if Stipe loses to Bones, he could fight Stipe. I'm not sure if Stipe is even interested or how many more fights he plans on taking if he doesn't beat Bones. For all we know, that could be the end. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, it could even end up that he has to fight like the winner of Curtis Blades and Jailton Almeida if Aspinall and Pavlovich is the fight that gets made. Like, he might be the odd man out potentially. So I don't know. I think we kind of got to see what they choose to do here. You wonder if they're just going to be like, Aspinall and Gane is so sexy that we're going to fuck Pavlovich here, but that feels wrong to me.
Yeah. What do you think, Omar?
So the only reason why I did go with Aspinall and Gane is because Pavlovich is the backup fighter right now for Stipe and John. So he can't really be booked right now anyway. And Gane didn't really look like he took a ton of damage in that fight, if any at all. Aspinall, I feel like, is ready to go at this point. So timeline-wise, I feel like it works out a lot better than waiting to see what happens in November between all that.
I didn't really think about that. So when you agree to be a backup fighter, that means you're sacrificing being booked. I mean, obviously, but I didn't even think about that in my brain, huh?
Mm-hmm.
So Pavlovich can't be... And that fight's not till November.
Correct. Which means he probably... I mean, to be fair, he could fight, a couple weeks after that. But the other thing is that if he is a backup fighter, he has to weigh in.
Yeah.
Oh, but it's heavyweight, though. It's heavyweight.
But still, he's putting in camps thinking about fighting potentially Stipe or John, not Gane or Aspinall. Yeah, that's interesting. Maybe they do fucking make Gane Aspinall in, December then. And
exactly.
Just waits, or I don't know. Yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about that angle of it.
Yep. And who knows? The way the cards have been shifting around, it's very possible that Gane and Aspinall get done maybe in New York.
I feel like also we've seen both. Just
maybe
backtracking here a little bit. Speaking of Bones and Stipe, I feel like have we seen both of those guys kind of either hint at or say this is kind of the last one?
I haven't
Bones
seen
did.
Stipe in months.
He hasn't said a word other
Stipe
than I'm going to beat John Jones.
Right.
He's
in the firehouse. He's in the firehouse.
He threw a tweet up 3 months ago, and we haven't heard shit since.
Yeah.
I mean, I do feel like this would be the last one for Stipe. I think either way.
Really?
I do. I think if he loses, he walks away. But I also think if he wins, he walks away.
These guys have been out for so long that the heavyweight division, I feel like the whole era of the UFC has passed by so many of these guys just waiting in the wings for whatever it is that they're waiting for. And I just don't feel like it just doesn't seem like it even makes sense to fight all these younger guys. I don't think it even carries the same kind of power as it did when they were fighting the guys in their era, in their division, For
John, it does. I think if John beats Stipe, for him to then knock off a Pavlovich and an Aspinall, I think makes his resume beyond legendary.
Yeah, but I think that's it, right?
It's kind of over.
Yeah, but I think that's it, right? All he needs is Stipe, or all he needs is Aspinall and Pavlovich, and then literally John Jones will have nothing more to do. Maybe Almeida, but
Almeida would be a crazy test for John Jones.
And
dude.
you could say the same for Stipe, that those kind of things would make his resume crazy. But
I was just gonna say,
I feel like he's more at the end for some reason than I don't know. I don't see him doing all that.
I also think the clout is different when it's John Jones and Stipe. Stipe, we can argue about greatest heavyweight of all time and the credentials that come with that and why he's the greatest of all time. But if you look at overall resume, overall everything, John Jones is still the one that everyone's trying. He's the Mount Everest, right? He's the one everyone's trying to climb to the top of.
And
More
Stipe's
so than
41,
Stipe.
frankly.
Yes.
John ain't nearly as old.
But I think both Stipe
He's
and
not
John.
that much younger. He's what, 37, 36, something like that?
I was gonna
John?
say 6 maybe.
Yeah,
He's got to be
36,
about 5 years
6
younger.
or 37.
Yeah.
But I think Stipe and John both are not just fighting for the title, but for a lot of legacy. Because I think if John beats Stipe,
Yes.
he's
36.
like, if John beats Stipe, he's like, that's it. Case closed, at least for now. I'm the GOAT. I'm the greatest. But if Stipe beats John, I think Stipe says, case closed, I'm the greatest heavyweight ever.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree too. And to be honest, for Stipe, in Stipe's standpoint, beating John, why the fuck would you need to fight anybody else? That's it. MMA math wins right there.
Yeah.
He'd be the first guy to ever do it. Ever.
And very well the only guy to ever do it.
But I don't think
Well,
so.
hey.
Okay, let's
sounds
talk
like
about...
We just figured out we might get Gane Aspinall, and I would be fucking pumped for that fight. And Tom Aspinall would tap him out.
Let's talk about Mr. Spivac. Omar, looking at the landscape of the heavyweight division, what do you think could be next for Spivac coming off this loss?
So this was I think we can all kind of agree, a relatively shitty performance. So I'm not really looking to give him anything. I think he kind of needs to prove a little something at this point. So I think a fight with Dontel Mays would be very interesting. Gives Dontel Mays kind of a leg up there, a potential opportunity. And it gives Spivac an opportunity to show that he belongs in the division spot that he's in right now.
Mark?
Bro. That was some hate.
That was a jump. I was just going to say, that was a jump. That was a jump.
Damn, Serghei Spivac is number 8.
Listen, he stood in the octagon for like 10 minutes just getting wailed on.
He didn't do anything.
Yeah,
It's true.
you're going to have to show a little something. Dontel Mays looked good in his last fight, so...
I mean, yeah, he did, but like before that, he lost to Augusto Sakai. Like, I don't know. All right, I mean, hey, to each their own. I just feel like Spivac getting a lot of hate right there.
I think there are other top 15ers that he hasn't fought yet, though. So
I will say the loser of the Curtis Blades Jailton Almeida fight that I mentioned.
what is he ranked now among the UFC rankings? Number 8. What is he at pre-rankings?
I kind of think 7.
Okay.
Yes, 7. So who do they have ahead of him that I don't have ahead of him? Why does it seem like no one? They have Ty ahead of him.
Okay.
And he beat Ty, so I have Ty 1 spot behind him, yeah.